Hare Krishna everyone, Jai Shri Ram. Welcome back to another round of spiritual podcast today. We have with me one of my fellow spiritual community members, Krishna Chaitanya Ananda Prabhu. Welcome to the podcast.
Hare Krishna Parth Prabhu, good to be here. Hare Krishna everyone.
Thank you for being here. So Krishna Chaitanya Ananda Prabhu, he's actually a disciple of same guru as me, His Holiness Radhanath Swami. And he's part of the same spiritual community that I'm part of. I've obviously listened to his classes before, so he's really excellent at going deep into scriptures, presenting a contemporary view of what we can learn from it. And he's also pursuing a BA in Sanskrit Vyakaran from Central Sanskrit University in India. So it's interesting to see that he's probably one of those only few elite people out there in the world that can also compose beautiful Sanskrit verses out of nowhere. Yeah, so it's an amazing quality he also has, apart from being a techie as well. So it's amazing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the kind words. I am a seeker like most of you. I have found my broad path, and even within then we all seek until we attain that supreme goal. So I am happy to share views from my journey as well today.
Fantastic. So I thought what could be a better topic than talking about Lord Nrsimha Dev, right? So in few days' time, there is this occasion of Nrsimha Jayanti or Nrsimha Caturdasi, as different spiritual circles might call it. It's the day when actually Lord Nrsimha Dev appeared to the very most famous devotee in the scriptures, Prahlad. And Prahlad's devotion has been talked about in so many different, be it like take any spiritual tradition across India, Prahlad is like famous. So I thought we would kind of go deep into Lord Nrsimha Dev's story and then look at different angles of what we also can learn from it in our lives. Yeah. So with that, maybe Krishna Chaitanya Ananda Prabhu, can you maybe like help us can dive deep into the background, the story, and what exactly happened on this day, Nrsimha Jayanti?
So most of you would be aware that Prahlad was a mere 5-year-old boy who appeared in the dynasty of the Asuras, or in English we call them as demons. And in this dynasty, his father was the infamous Hiranyakashipu, who had the, let's say, grudge toward Lord Vishnu in order to avenge the death of his brother Hiranyaksha. And he wanted to become extremely powerful and destroy Lord Vishnu, as a result of which he performed immense austerities and gathered benedictions from Brahma. And the way he asked for his benediction is quite analytical. He did not want to be killed by pretty much any known species, whether they be humans, the devas, the animals, none of them. And he didn't want to be killed by inside the home or outside, neither during the day, like during the night. So he pretty much covered whole of space and time, as well as all possible weapons that could come into being. So he said he couldn't be killed by any weapons and pretty much by any known species. So he covered all the possibilities. He calculated, very precise, but his intention was not pure. His intention was to get revenge at any cost for avenging his brother's death, who was not moral either. So that way he did get the benediction. So Lord Brahma gives the benediction, and then immediately, because the intention was not pure, he used the empowerment that he got to terrorize the entire world. So right from the lower planetary systems to the upper planetary systems. So in the Vedic view of the universe, it's like a 14-storied building. So and each story is one of the worlds. And we are in the middle story, which is called the Bhuloka. And then above there are the celestial realms, and then below there are the Saturnian realms and so on. So he terrorized all of them. Practically, other than the trinity of the universe, namely Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, everyone else were under his control. And the Devatas had to serve him, and obviously like the Asuras would also serve him. The sages would sing his glories. So everyone was practically under his control, so much so that his eyebrows would just function like a natural air conditioning, meaning he would just raise his eyebrows and the sun's temperature would automatically get adjusted. So he had such extraordinary and unprecedented powers. And still, despite having so much of control, his pure, innocent, sinless 5-year-old son, because he wouldn't listen to him, he lost all control upon himself and he tormented him through unbelievably excruciating circumstances. He threw him off from the cliff, he put him under elephants, he tormented him through snakes, fed him poison, and unimaginable things that one can do to a 5-year-old. Rest all of you know. And then Prahlad's devotion was extraordinary because despite all these excruciating circumstances, he had complete faith. Complete faith that the Lord will always take care of his devotees, and he did not even pray to be saved. He could have, but he already knew that the Lord will take care. So that was the extraordinary level of his faith, and therefore he is celebrated as the best of devotees by so many throughout history, as well as across different sampradayas even till today. That's the beauty of the Prahlad Maharaj's devotion. And of course we'll see eventually how Lord Nrsimha came and did protect him both invisibly as well as visibly. So the visible part is what is talked about, but it's the same Lord who also protected him from all these calamities. So that's the beautiful pastime. We can pretty much relate it to most of the things we undergo in this world, even if it's not that excruciating. It just appears so because our mind is expert in making us overwhelmed even at the pettiest of circumstances. Just like Hiranyakashipu, despite having control over all the planetary systems, was so unhappy because he couldn't have control over his little 5-year-old. So yes,
it's beautiful how nicely narrated the whole pastime. One thing that strikes me is like the science, and there's a lot of leaders in the society, their quest for knowing what's happening out there in the world outside Earth. Elon Musk wanting to go to Mars, and this is like fascinating, you could say, a quest for and thirst for knowing what's there out in the world other than us human beings. In that quest of being eternal, living forever, that's like a aspiration all human beings kind of aspire for, which we see in Hiranyakashipu's tapasya as well. He wants to live forever in that body. And how our scriptures beautifully kind of bring the spiritual angle to how we have the spirit, soul, and the body is only there for finite time. That kind of that contradiction is there, that as a spirit we want to live forever, but as a body is not permanent. But then the science and everybody else still wants to pursue that aspiration, which I thought like it's an interesting angle coming from Hiranyakashipu's tapasya to and what he's asking from Lord Brahma.
Yes, you bring up a very interesting point comparing the extraordinary aspirations of today with the extraordinary aspirations of Hiranyakashipu. Of course, Hiranyakashipu's intention was to become all-powerful, only to destroy Lord Vishnu, and he wanted immortality for the same purpose. In today's world, the aspirations that we have in terms of reaching not just the moon and back, but also Mars and even further. So these are all representing the fundamental thirst for knowledge, which is unlimited. So the knowledge could be in the depths of the ocean or up in the cosmos. There is always this element of curiosity in the human mind to know where we come from and what we actually can call ourselves at home. We all know Earth is the home, but that's the biological home. But human beings are not merely biological. The scriptures say that we have multi-tiered reality to our existence. So at one level, yes, we are the biology, we are the body. And at a higher level, we are not just the body, but the mind, intelligence, ego, and consciousness that is powering the body, so to speak. And at the ultimate level, we are not even that subtler layer of existence, which sometimes people may identify partially with astral body and so on. But ultimately, we are the witness of all of that, which is the most subtle essence of us, called the Atma. Now, this Atma is described in the scriptures as full of knowledge and full of existence. And this quest of finding that ocean of knowledge and the ocean of unlimited existence is what is projected outward, and we are trying to attain that in a three-dimensional realm that we relate to biologically. Whereas the sages of the past try to attain the same thing but by turning inward.
Yeah.
That's why the scriptures describe that the external cosmic reality and the internal miniature reality, meaning the microcosm and the macrocosm, uh, share a lot of correspondence with each other. They are pretty much the same level of complexity at different scales. So that way, the sages took the method of introspecting, meditating, and realizing, and the modern science takes the method of exploring outside. And I feel like it's fundamentally limited because our perception through the biology is quite limited. And even if we try to expand it out by different instruments, such as like microscopes, telescopes, and so on, or different ways to understand the spectrum, still they are made of the instruments which are a product of the imperfect senses as well. So there is a limit to human perception and rationality, and science accepts both of these as the ways to knowledge, which is partially true, but it cannot be completely true because both of these are fundamentally limited, as shown by scientists and logicians themselves. So philosophers of the past, even as recent as few centuries before, have already demonstrated the fundamental limits of logic, rationality, and also perception, which is a well-known fact. Therefore, philosophically speaking, science is fundamentally limited in its approach to the truth. It is certainly useful as a tool, but to say that science is the only method to understand the limits of the universe falls under a philosophy called scientism, and it's a misapplication of science in areas where it doesn't belong.
Yeah. Yeah, I
That's
think you rightly said like different tools can get us like knowledge up to a certain extent, and there's some limitations with that. I mean, even when I see videos of NASA and International Space Station and all of that, there's only so much you can do there because you're just tiny bit exploring here and there, and you can only get to certain conclusions. So there's some limitations for sure. In fact, I feel this could be a great topic later podcast to kind of even just dive deep on how science and our Vedic cosmology coming from Bhagavatam and other scriptures differ and what we make meaning out of it actually. But the other aspect, coming back to our topic today, Prahlad going through such tribulations and he's surviving and Lord are coming for him, it kind of is like a point that we maybe I was introspecting as you're talking about it, that we are surviving today, and let's say we have gone through several, you could say, close calls, right? I mean, we had an earthquake in California a few weeks back. It was pretty massive. I got woken up by it. I don't know if you also were woken up by it.
I think I felt it. But
you felt it, right? Yeah, I felt it pretty strongly. And I was like, okay, I'm happy that I've gotten a new life again, because I went through an earthquake in my childhood and we lost so much back then. So it's interesting that, I mean, we should cultivate a lot of gratitude because those close calls could have been an end of our lives. And in Prahlad's case, obviously he's a great devotee, he's grateful and he's remembering the Lord, but it's just something that I thought like how gratitude needs to be cultivated. As we even talk about spirituality, gratitude needs to be like a foundation of everything.
that's so true. First of all, sorry to hear the earthquake experience you had in your childhood. And yes, it's very true. The scriptures describe this as padam padam yat vipadam. So at every step, there is a possibility of danger in this world. And it's very easy to say, but it's very difficult to live a life like that. So because if every time we think that there is going to be danger, we live in being petrified. At the same time, on the positive side, as you said rightly, that we should have gratitude and we should spend time every day cultivating this attitude of gratitude. And that is what makes us more human, I would say, than beings who become entitled by taking things for granted without acknowledging their special place in one's life. In fact, the scriptures mention that one should be grateful for all the natural resources they consume, which they do not produce. Right from sunlight, the rains that we get, the grains that we get, and so on and so forth. And as a token of gratitude, certain rituals are prescribed and certain sacrifices in terms of, you sacrifice some time, you sacrifice some energy to go feed people, to do philanthropic things, good things, to offer some sacrifices to the devatas by offering our footsteps to the deities before consuming and so on. So this attitude of gratitude has been a foundation for civilized human beings right from the Vedic times. And it's time to, I think, recollect that and to be able to get back to our roots. And we know in modern day parlance that gratitude is very powerful, it's very empowering, and so on. And the roots to this culture has always been there in Sanatan Dharma. And that's why Sanatan means it's eternal. So it has always been there in civilized life. So very rightly pointed out. So everybody should, I think, take time out to introspect, to reflect, to feel that gratitude in their lives every day.
Yeah, it's nicely said, I think. Gratitude in attitude and gratitude in action, both kind of go hand in hand here.
Mm.
So that's nice. Like, I think with this story that we are talking about, Hiranyakashipu is like a very strong character, right? Like, I mean, you can see kind of resemblance in similar characters during World War histories and all of that. These people who with amazing lot of power, lot of dominance, lot of like ego, have like they think like they're something very big, and then they want to crush people. In fact, at my workplace, we were hearing about this one of the survivors of the Holocaust. Like, they're talking about how they survived the whole kind of massacre of Jews, right, by Hitler. And I mean, similar things we have seen in World War histories, many battles and all of that, especially also in Indian history. So maybe how do we kind of look at that whole angle in scriptures? Obviously, from Rama and Mahabharata also we see similar patterns. What do we kind of learn from that on what we should be careful in our attitudes from these examples?
Yeah, so you bring up very important points, and I would see it from two angles primarily. One is when we are in that powerful position, and the other is when we are subject to that powerful position from someone else. On the giving end was Hiranyakashipu, on the receiving end was Prahlad. So the scriptures say that let's take the first position, when one is endowed with power and different strengths, so to speak. So the scriptures mention there are 6 things that can make a person very puffed up and proud. And these are also the 6 things that are celebrated in this world. And one, for example, the power, as you said, is one of them. There is also wealth, beauty, fame, renunciation, and knowledge. These 6 are considered, you can say, as very desirable things in this world. And each of these endow the person with some specialty. And you can say with some potency, if you don't want to use the word power, because it's already there in the power aspect in the 6. So these potencies can very easily corrupt the mind of one who is attached to them. If you see in the Ramayana, none of Ram, Lakshman, Bharat or Shatrughna wanted the throne. None of them. And yet it was their right to have the throne. This is the example that the Shastras are portraying of how an ideal human being should be. Lord Ram is an emblem of an ideal human. Therefore he is Purushottama, the best of humans. He had beauty. If you read the Ramayana, Lord Ram's beauty is unparalleled. He had learning. And of course, he is the Supreme Lord, he knows everything, but he had supreme learning as well. And he had supreme renunciation. The Ramayana mentions that when he was asked to depart to the forest, not even his eyes became red or there were any change in reaction. With the same enthusiasm that he would occupy the throne, with the same enthusiasm he was ready to leave. Because he was always upholding Dharma. He said it was his father's desire, and it's the duty of the son to uphold the Dharma given by the father. And then if you see all of these wealthy, riches and fame, all of this were there in abundance for Lord Ram. And yet there was no sign of pride. Hiranyakashipu pretty much had all of these things. You name it, everything he had. Maybe no other than renunciation, but still he had to be renounced to be able to get the boon from Brahma. So he had all of these in some sense. But he became puffed up. So what's the difference? The difference is, in one case, the heart is pure. In the other case, the heart is filled with malice of harming and destroying. Therefore, power in the hands of right people is always beneficial for the world. In fact, it should exist in the hands of right people. And when it's in the hands of wrong people with malicious intent, it can be harmful for the entire world. So this is why it's very important that as we grow and occupy different positions, whether it be in the corporate world, whether it be in our communities, whether it be in our families, we should use that power and position responsibly. And on the receiving end, depending on how elevated one's consciousness is, if one is subject to oppression, there are different types of responses. If you see the example of Gajendra, he was subject to helplessness in a sense by the crocodile who held his feet. For those of you who don't know, Gajendra was a very powerful elephant who in his past life was a great king named Nrsimha, and he was a devotee, and then he got cursed and then he became an elephant. And there was another Gandharva who got cursed, he became a crocodile. So this crocodile was holding the feet of the elephant, and the war went for thousands of years, and the elephant could not do anything because it was in water, and the crocodile had the upper hand in water, not the elephant. But still, the elephant tried everything it could. Gajendra tried everything he could. Using our abilities is not a bad thing. In fact, one should use the abilities wisely, and that's what shows a person is being responsible and not letting them being used as a doormat. So one should do the needful when it comes to dealing with oppression, and at the same time one must also develop tolerance when there are things that are beyond their control, while praying for betterment in their life. So there are three aspects to it. At some level, there is some tolerance that's needed because the world is never ideal. And because of that, it's not always, most of the times we don't get exactly what we want. Sometimes we may get in the ballpark, we are happy. Sometimes we may get more than what we want. Sometimes we get less than what we want. Sometimes we get exactly opposite of what we want. So there has to be some tolerance because that will keep us grounded to what we have to accomplish in this world. We all have a purpose, a dharmic purpose, to contribute to a better world, make this world, as they say, as a better place one step at a time. So that one step could be us moving in the right direction as well. And in fact, that is the case. So that way tolerance is important. Doing the needful is also important. There has to be a strategic vision, just like Chanakya had, and therefore the India at that point was able to remain united. And similarly, all of us have differences. Like in the US, it's United States of America. So despite having diversity, there is a larger purpose for which all of us come together and contribute. Therefore, keeping that higher purpose in mind, one has to do the needful while dealing with oppression and things like that. And at the same time, one understands when they grow spiritually that things may not be in my control, but that doesn't mean it's out of control. It's in Krishna's control or God's control. Therefore, one should pray also. Just like Gajendra, after doing everything he could, he remembered the prayers from his past life and he prayed, and the Lord appeared and delivered the crocodile and Gajendra from their difficult positions. And if you see the case of Prahlad Maharaj, though he was put to torment, he did not feel the suffering because he was always absorbed. And most of us are not at that level. Therefore, we have to be externally conscious of doing the needful. Yeah. In his case, he was seeing the Paramatma, the Lord, everywhere. That's why when Hiranyakashipu said, "You are claiming that you can see God, Vishnu everywhere. Is he in this pillar in front of me?" He asked. Then he said, "Yes, I see him even in the pillar." And it's mentioned that just to make Prahlad's words become true, Nrsimha appeared. He didn't appear because Hiranyakashipu challenged, because he had challenged him many times before. He didn't appear just to protect Prahlad Maharaj also, because he was protecting him all the way by being invisible. He appeared not to destroy Hiranyakashipu either, because as the Paramatma he could have simply stopped the life airs and Hiranyakashipu would be dead. He appeared because Prahlad asked him to appear. He said, "Yes, I see him." And to make Prahlad's words true, he appeared there. So that's the beauty. So one should have faith and one should continue praying while doing the needful in this world. So yes.
Yeah, it's beautifully said, right? Like, I think unlike Prahlad, who had like very high exalted consciousness that he could see Lord everywhere, we might not be at that level. So if we are being, let's say, going through some tough situation, like I saw in the news recently about some of the employees in TCS, Hindu employees, they're being kind of tortured, put to conversion pressure and all of that. And I mean, it's good that those people now come out in the public and report and do a proper FIR and all of that, because certain people who are taking advantage of innocent people need to be corrected. Otherwise, they keep persecuting and this keeps going on. So, I mean, Arjun also at some point when he tolerated enough, they had to fight the whole war to actually correct the behavior of Duryodhana. Otherwise, Duryodhana had gone too far ahead. So, I mean, as you rightly said, like there is times when we tolerate certain small inconveniences you tolerate because you don't want to kind of spend your energy on small problems all the time. But there's also times when you have to do the needful to stand up for yourself or stand up for people around you, because if you don't, then people who are persecuting might think, oh yeah, this is normal. So unless you voice it out, certain people will just assume these things are fine. So this is a very delicate balance between when to take action, when to tolerate, and obviously requires a lot of judgment too and a lot of good thought also.
This is very true. And you bring up a lot of historical recollections as well. When India used to be actually very high up in the GDP rankings for a long time until I think as recent as the 18th century. And it was reflective of a very flourishing civilization and culture that people wanted to come and trade with India. Not only spices, but also many other things. India was very famous for its learning. So people would come to the universities and study. Most of us only know Nalanda University, but then there are a lot of places of high learning that ancient India had, which were famous throughout, and people would come to study. And when there were invasions and there were people who wanted to grab power, who were trying to attack, then a lot of kings did their duty, because of which the culture of Bharat is still preserved in some form. And especially if you see the Dakshina Bharat or the South India, the lot of Sanatan Dharma culture has been preserved thanks to the sacrifices of several kings in the north who laid down their lives to stop the invaders from going further south. And if they thought that what's the need for me to perform the duty, then first thing, they wouldn't be considered Kshatriyas as per the scriptures, because one always has to do their duty. And second thing, we would not be having whatever Sanatan Dharma that's left either. So it's important that we recognize our roles and responsibilities in this world and serve accordingly. In fact, if you see, Arjuna was a warrior, a Kshatriya, and when he decided to not fight, Krishna in fact told you should fight. Whereas if you see Krishna, he did everything possible to stop the war to begin with. He himself went as a peace messenger. So God doesn't want war, but when it comes to protecting Dharma, he didn't in fact like Arjuna to give up fighting. Therefore, all of us have metaphorical battles that we fight with, and hopefully no real battles. And even if they are there, it is expected of Kshatriyas to not drop their swords when the time comes. I mean, in no way one should become unnecessarily violent. But if you see, every country has their defense forces ready with arms and ammunition to protect the country. Otherwise, there won't be a country left in the first place. So if there is no protection, so that's the one has to do the needful in their role. If one is a Brahmana, they have to spread knowledge, and if they are only like sitting at the home and meditating. In fact, when you read Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj says that there are sages who do this, sit in the forest and meditate, and they want liberation for themselves. But I am not like that. I cannot be like that. Therefore, I am sharing this knowledge with others. He says that himself in the Bhagavatam. So similarly, taking that inspiration of Prahlad Maharaj, those who are Brahmanically minded, intellectually minded, should share their views. And you are doing very nice service by taking views from different speakers, different backgrounds. And that is an intellectual contribution to shape the society's perspective as well. And similarly, Kshatriyas have to be trained to be able to protect as necessary. And Vaishyas should be able to do businesses, increase capital, and so on, required to support Dharma. And everyone should have the service spirit, and which is, it is mentioned as Shudras, but everybody should have that service spirit really in general. And Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, everybody are meant to serve the larger purpose of the society. So, in taking Dharma forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's nicely said, right? Like, we might not exactly have like a clear distinction of who is Brahmana, Kshatriya in today's day and age, purely of how society was organized back then. But at least I am taking away from this that wherever we are, find an opportunity to contribute in a dharmic way and kind of use that opportunity. Don't leave for somebody else to step in. Do what your part and your contribution allows you to do, and that's a nice step forward, rather than waiting for other people to fix things. Yeah.
Wonderfully put. Yeah, today's I think system is much more fluid, and therefore one has to contribute as their mentors, or as wise people see fit, as they see fit themselves. And this is so important to find your footing in the society,
Yes.
not only career wise but also identity and culture wise, ideology wise. So we have such harmonious values in Sanatan Dharma that there can be so many coherent and universally harmonious ideologies that can evolve from there. So whatever one feels strongly about, then it could be taken as the purpose of their life and they can contribute. So this is very important. So we may not have the designated roles like, I am a Brahmana, I am a Kshatriya, I am a Vaishya or Shudra, but in whatever capacity one can contribute toward Dharma, it's important to do that.
Yeah.
So,
And it's a very easy, I mean, given we are talking about like Nrsimha Jayanti and Earth Day is today's Earth Day when we are recording it. It's like very apt to say, okay, you could just take some baby steps to help a goshala where cows are being served, or help a temple, or just as you talked about, like, help some poor people. Like, start somewhere, do some act of compassion, open your heart to something more than just yourself, and you'll see more good things come in life as you give to others. So
very beautifully put. Go ahead, complete your thought.
yeah, no,
I just got reminded that if you see, when Earth was tormented by so many sinful beings, she took the form of a cow and she went to pray to Lord Brahma, and then Krishna would appear later. So cows are very special. Even Mother Earth took the form of a cow. And Krishna is also known as Gopal and Govind. So the protector and maintainer, and one who gives pleasure to cows. So if you find a goshala, and cows are very integral to any agricultural society and has been the backbone of Bharat for a long time, and very important in Sanatan Dharma, because even the whole of Vedas are likened to a cow by Adi Shankaracharya in his Gita Mahatmya. Sarva Upanishado Gavo. So he says that cows are like the mother. The Vedas are like the mother. They are trying to guide the individual beings. So if you contribute to serving cows, a lot of purposes are achieved at different levels of abstraction. So a lot of connections to earth and cows, as you mentioned.
Totally, yeah. No, I think, in fact, I was researching that if all people just switch to, let's say, not eating beef, that would solve a lot of climate change. The heat that we are seeing in the climate, that would help, because beef is the largest contributor to methane, and methane is what contributes to heat of the earth. So it's interesting that a simple action like just stop eating beef can change so much of the world's aspects. Yeah.
This is a huge topic in itself. There's a very famous quote I'm reminded of. If only slaughterhouses had glass walls,
Yes.
the world would be vegetarian.
Yeah.
So it's very natural for children or anybody with childlike pure consciousness to not harm beings. If somebody can survive without harming animals, that's very important. And we also eat plants. I mean, of course, we can say they don't have consciousness as much evolved as the animals on account of lack of nervous system and so on. But still, the Shastras mention everything gives us karma. Even killing plants gives us karma. But since we have to survive, jivo jivasya jivanam, so we have to do the minimal in terms of taking from this planet and maximum in terms of giving back to this planet.
Yeah.
This is the life of simple living and high thinking that the Vedic society is known for. Cows are important as mothers, and remaining animals are also to be shown compassion. We have the example of Bharat Maharaj, who showed compassion to a deer, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed compassion to a dog. These acts of compassion are for all animals in general and all humans in general. Acts of violence are not really encouraged. They are only done when it is necessary to protect Dharma. but it's not encouraging. The scriptures do not encourage acts of violence as such.
Yes.
There were some special purposes, some things were done, but in this day and age, in general, it's important to take cognizance of this principle that we should not perform himsa to living beings in general.
Yeah.
Oh, well, if somebody can become a yogi and just survive on air, then that's also good. But since we cannot do that and we have to accept plant food, then we do take that and also contribute, give back. Life is not only for eating, but also giving back.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very nicely put. In fact, I think we could jam on this like a proper podcast for why switching to a plant-based diet is a good one. But coming back to our topic, so kind of one last kind of angle I wanted to look at with you is, there's the I've seen this as you're talking about earthquake, that when people went through a tough time, they lost, let's say, family members, suddenly people turn atheist. That's a pattern I've seen. How do we kind of keep faith in a very chaotic situation? And Prahlad obviously is, you could say, a very, very high example of it, but not everybody might be able to reach to that standard on day one. So how do we kind of, because everybody is going through difficult situation right now, layoffs, wars, inflation, I mean, there is stress. It's not an easy time to live in the world today. So how can somebody take inspiration from Prahlad's example, at the same time do something tangible to start kind of getting faith in the spiritual process, in the process of bhakti and Lord Krishna?
Yeah, that's great. You have combined many questions into. Well, I think in the Vedic tradition, the law of karma is seen as the universal backbone behind the action reaction pairs. Everybody knows Newton's third law, that to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And this law Newton discovered is actually how nature works, not just Newtonian mechanics alone. If you put a mango seed, you may not get a mango tree immediately, but over a period of time, when all the other conditions are right, a mango tree comes up. But if you bang your hand to a wall, the pain comes immediately. Therefore, sometimes the reactions take its time to fructify, and sometimes they come immediately. So whatever happens in this life, like which families we are born into, how do we look to begin with, what capabilities we are given as a baseline, all of these things are determined based on the karmas of the individual in the past. Therefore, they are born with that kind of a neural network. So it's not without reason. So as Einstein famously put it, God does not play dice. So there is a predictability in the laws of nature which science studies, and these laws fundamentally are based on action and reaction. So that's what is the law of karma, the ultimate force behind all the things that happen in the material creation. Therefore, if it's not in one's karma to, like for example, lose their livelihood, then even if they get laid off, immediately they will find some other opportunity. It just happens that way. And I have seen this. Unfortunately, some of the people I knew, they had gotten laid off. Not this year. It's been like I think couple of years now. But they immediately found even better jobs back in India. And karmas are very difficult to decode. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Gahana karmano gati. And the science of seeing karmas and all this is also done through astrology, Jyotish Shastra. It is fully to actually see the karmas the person is going to experience at different parts in life, what dispositions they are born with, which are also products of their past samskaras and karmas and so on. It's a very deep science. And so karma is functioning at one level, and on the second level, as soon as one takes up to bhakti or a spiritual path in general, and especially bhakti, one immediately turns off the karma generation process. Meaning, just like you turn off a fan, a ceiling fan, or a table fan, whatever you take, when you turn it off, due to inertia, it keeps rotating. It doesn't stop immediately. Similarly, when one starts living a spiritual life, they flip the switch of creating additional karmas, because of which the old karmas still have to do their job. And when they are taking to the process of bhakti, it's mentioned, because they have already served the purpose for which the law of karma was created in the first place, which is to elevate the consciousness of living beings toward a universal harmonious life. Because of that, they only get a small token of reaction. It's like you already learnt your lesson. then why to make your life miserable? So that kind of an understanding. So just because things appear to happen randomly doesn't mean they are random. It's just our limited perception or ignorance that makes us model them as random effects. This is true even in the world of applied science as well. When you create models, you have to have this error term, and that has to follow a distribution based on unexplained effects and so on. But that's only our convenience. There's always a mechanism if you drill down that is causing it. It's just we are limited in our measurements, we are limited in our perception, and so on and so forth. That makes us think that things are random.
Yeah.
So nothing is random. In fact, one quote that's attributed to Einstein is coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. So yeah, it's a very profound quote. And so when things happen due to karma, one has to understand that something must have happened in the past due to which it's happening. But one doesn't have to go and try to find the cause. And it's not possible to rationalize when something really bad happens to someone. Therefore, if we are in the position of guiding someone, we should empathize with them, show that sensitivity, and we should slowly make them understand what is the higher reality. Therefore, if you see, when Arjuna was completely devastated, he just dropped his bow and arrow. Krishna doesn't immediately give him guidance. So until Arjuna asks him, please tell me what I should do. I am just totally lost. I will accept you as my guru. You please tell me what I should do. Then Krishna starts instructing. Of course, until then Krishna and Arjuna are friends. And later, Krishna assumes the role of the guru and Arjuna the role of the disciple. Similarly, if we are in the position of guiding someone or friends or family members to someone who underwent difficulties, no matter small or big, we should always empathize first. And then once they are through that emotional pain, then the rational side needs to be invigorated through spiritual knowledge. And that's how people can come to terms with what happened. Otherwise, there will never be a closure to any bad incident in life.
Yeah.
Which is important to live life sustainably and coherently. So that's what I would say. And atheism is having a belief that there is no God. Just like if you have a child, you may not give the child everything they want. And because of that, sometimes they may just appear so devastated and think that you are a bad parent. That may not be true. So if a child wants to put the hand into the fan, then the parents may not want it, obviously. Or if the child wants to jump off of the car, nobody wants it. If the child starts thinking that they are not letting me do what I want, therefore they are bad people, or they don't exist and I have to run away from the home, that is not appropriate. That's only the heat of the moment understanding. But eventually, when one can rationalize, one has to seek out proper spiritual guidance, proper spiritual mentor who can help them. Ideally, that's what temples and spiritual centers of learning are meant for.
Yeah.
That's what should happen. Temple should not only be place of worship, but education centers as well.
Yeah. It's nicely put that karma is like a, you could say, lesson that comes in our lives to help us learn something. Instead of losing faith in spirituality, bhakti, and Lord Krishna's, you could say, benevolent guidance to us, we could rather take it like, if we ask the question, what can I learn from this situation? And what patterns am I doing that I am supposed to correct? That could fuel our growth journey rather than taking us on a depression path that, oh, everything is doomed because I just lost my job, or okay, my relationship is gone, or something bad happened with me. Right? So I really love that point that we take this all as a learning growth opportunity from our perspective, find the right people to grow with. It could be our spiritual mentors, and sometimes some situations obviously need some professional help. So obviously some professional help might also be required to deal with the situation. But in general, all bad times can be a learning opportunity. And if you look at it, Prahlad is obviously a great example of it. But the Pandavas, for 13 years when they were in exile, they used all their time to really up-level their archery skills, martial skills, right? And they used all of that for perfect timing to grow. And all of that came very handy when they were fighting the war. So nothing is like a lost opportunity if we use all bad situations also as a impetus to grow more.
So beautifully put. And this reminds me of something from the scriptures, that behind every situation that looks like a curse is a hidden blessing, or a blessing in disguise. So if you read Bhagavatam, it mentions how Narad Muni was cursed by Daksha that he could not stay in one place, so he couldn't call anything home. Now it may appear like a curse, but Narad Muni used it as a blessing that he travels everywhere and wherever he goes, he tries to bring spirituality in their life, he tries to elevate those people. So, as you rightly pointed out, one with a mature vision can understand that curses are blessings in disguise, and if they felt frustrated or if they come up with atheism is one example, or any ideology that's not healthy for them, that's not going to change the situation anyway. It's just to come to terms that they have decided to do something. So instead, one should see it as an opportunity to grow and take up to healthy practices, as you said, upskilling, up leveling. So all of these are part of the process, and at the same time, to not be devastated by the ups and downs of life, the spiritual texts recommend one should have a strong sadhana. Because intellectually we may understand this, but we cannot come to terms with devastating incidents that easily unless we are very spiritually strong. We are very strong, spiritually speaking. And that strength comes by performing sadhana and listening to the scriptures and hearing from saintly people and so on. This practice, if it is made a part of everyday lifestyle, then one will be able to weather the storms in life.
Need more anchors in life to really hold on as
Yes.
we go through ups and downs. Yeah. And you rightly nicely said the seed example also resonated with me, that whatever we are going through is like some seeds we have sown in the past. So rather than blaming others, because we don't remember sometimes, obviously it's easy to blame others. But I mean, they are just seeds that are giving us results. So it's nobody else to blame for what we are going through.
This is precisely the reason why Sanatan Dharma is so empowering, because it's a self-correcting ideology. So you always focus on how can I learn from the situation, what do I learn, how can I become a better person, because we believe that it's our own doing which has come in this form.
Yes.
If that belief is not there, then we can point fingers at others and ultimately to God as well. So therefore this kind of a self-correcting and self-improving ideology is intrinsically present in the fabric of Sanatan Dharma. When one learns about this perspective, brings this perspective to life, life is bound to improve.
Yes. Yeah.
Or
So
at the least, the individual will improve.
individual will at least improve. Yeah, if you have that attitude. So at least maybe I'm kind of summarizing, and let me know if there's things that we should add here. We talked about karma, we talked about deepening our faith, we talked about sadhana, we talked about taking action when needed as per our capacity, right? And we talked about science, we talked about Earth Day, we talked about doing something for the cows, maybe doing a vegetarian diet, vegan diet to begin with. We talked about a lot of these aspects, and obviously Prahlad is a beautiful example of deepening our devotion in tough times, good times. What would be like maybe one or two takeaways or last takeaways that you would want to tell our listeners today?
I would say that keep the ideals in your mind, but don't forget the practical side of our existence. We cannot act like someone else. We are ourselves because we have worked on us for several lifetimes and several years in this lifetime. So respect that nature that one has and take one step in the right direction every day. And then one day you will realize that you're very close to your ideals. So that's what I would say.
Beautifully put. Thank you, Krishna Chaitanya Ananda Prabhu. We're very delighted to have you today, and hoping we could jam on a lot more topics. There is so much happening that we need a lot of spiritual perspective to make our lives more uplifting, devotional. So I think there's a lot more to learn from you. So we're hoping we can learn from in future as well. But thank you, and we wish our listeners happy Nrsimha Jayanti. It's on the 30th April. Please go to the temples, celebrate it with devotees. It's a beautiful day to absorb in devotion and start a new spiritual journey for those who have not started yet. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. So do your best and leave the rest to Krishna.